Here we are. Good evening, everyone. It's thrilling to be here. Yeah, we're on. We're on, girlfriend.
Exactly.
It's to be here with you is ridiculously wonderful to me. We've met a few times over the years. Most people who do what I do, I don't think ever get to meet the author that they are trying to serve, which is what I'm trying to do.
Well, I tell you, people swear you're a Kinsey Millhone, so...
Not if they saw me, I don't think. I'm not exact. And more's the pity, because if there was ever a moment where you had wanted her to appear live, I would love to have been the person to play it. But I don't think I'm out of the box.
We're all
exactly
too long in the tooth.
Well, now for sure. But
good to see you.
Good to see you. So my creativity lies in expressing, in sort of trying to serve a writer or a composer. I'm a singer. I do Broadway musicals, and I've done opera. So I try to bring to life certain things, but to sit down at the blank page, I have tried it on occasion, and I cannot do it.
Yeah, me neither.
Oh, hardly. No. How do you begin? From whence does it springeth? Where does Kinsey lie?
Well, I am never entirely certain. When I finish a book, I'm always convinced that's the last one. And sometimes we're not at the end of the alphabet, which is really a tragedy. One thing, let me just answer the question they're going to ask me anyway. What is she going to do when she gets to the end of Z is for Zero? Her doesn't know. I'm waiting to see what my energy level is, and I'm waiting to see if I've been institutionalized at that point. It's going to take me 2 years for Y and 2 years for Z, and I want to make sure I have the juice. There are writers who go on writing when the juice is gone, and you can see it on the page, and to me it's a disappointment. I will not do that to you, I promise. So what I will do after Z is for Zero, if Miss Millhone permits, I will do standalones. No linking titles, but Miss Millhone assures me that much of what she does is none of my damn business. So I have to coax her into cooperating, but now that you know the answer to that, we'll just get that out of the way.
She's in the third person then.
It's to me.
She exists out there. She exists out there. Did she just come as just leap from your, like Zeus?
No. What happened when this goes back so far. When I decided to do a detective novel, I wanted to find a way to link titles. And this is an answer to a different question, but it'll serve. So I was reading an Edward Gorey cartoon book called The Gashly Crumb Tinies, which is little pen and ink drawings of Victorian children being done in various ways. It's very droll. And it goes, A is for Amy, who fell down the stairs. B is for Basil, assaulted by bears. C is for Claire, who wasted away. D is for Desmond, thrown out of a sleigh. And it goes all the way through the alphabet with little children, choking and drowning. So that's where it popped into my head to do the alphabet. At the time, I had never written a detective novel in my life. I'd read many, many, many of them. And so I knew nothing about California criminal law. I was having to study that, having to study private eye procedure, police procedure, toxicology, ballistics. And when it came to designing the protagonist, a technical term, I thought, the only thing I know anything about is being female, so I'm going to make her female. So it was not a political statement of any sort. It was pure desperation. So I am Kinsey Millhone, unless you don't like her. That's what I always say. If you don't like her, I disavow any connection. She does cause much more than I do. I just want to make that clear.
She's sassy, and the situations that you lead her into, does she tell you where she wants to go?
Yes, sometimes. I often, when the work is going well, it's like taking dictation. Mm-hmm. When it's not going well, it's like, I don't know what, it's terrible. I figure I'm smart one day out of 30, but I don't know which day it's going to be. So I have to sit at my desk every day daring to be stupid, which is really unpleasant. We live most of our lives trying to kid ourselves that we're smart, gracious, and polite people. When you write, what you're facing is all your demons, and that's what makes it so difficult. That's why when you sit down to write, it's your demons.
It is and they've got me.
Yeah.
They've got my number.
But see, I couldn't do what you could do. I could not do it.
Well, I guess it's a slightly different skill set, as
Yes.
my brother-in-law says. My skill set is to get up in front of a whole lot of people and
Risk failure.
Well, yeah, and keep asking for work. That's the other thing that actors do, is we're constantly, trying to get the job.
This is so rude to put my...
No.
Okay.
No, I think it was great. So the great day that I got a call from my agent to show up in this conference room and read from a book that you had written as an audition and somehow passed muster. I'll never know how or why, but that began how many years ago? I mean, it was...
Well, A.S. for Alibi came out in 1982.
But I didn't start until those first ones were already recorded in
those
unabridged.
early ones were abridged edition.
Yeah, the ones I didn't. And I want to go back.
I do
and
too.
do
I know. We'll have to have a little temper tantrum. But they assure me the abridged editions, for instance, the abridged edition of X, they've taken out one whole storyline. So if you talk about X to your friends, they'll be telling you something you don't know, and you'll feel really stupid. So I advise you to buy the unabridged edition.
Well, yeah. Yeah, that's cutting my own throat, of course, because I have to record both of them individually. They can't just lift from one because
that
it would not
did surprise me. I always assumed you did the unabridged and then they kind of cut it, but I can see how impossible that would be.
Because it changes everything when some of that stuff is abridged. It's not tremendously satisfying, but they pay me, and that's a nice thing.
Well, they send me those scripts. I have to approve them. That's like, I don't even know what to compare it to. So I have to sort of steel myself and read through the script. And they're very clever. I must say, they are very adept at it. They're just stripping stuff right and left. And I'm fighting to save two little lines here and there. And I'm not precious about my work. No one gets to help me with it, please understand. But I try not to be temperamental about it. But it is hard to see a story just disemboweled.
Well, now you know what it's like for an actor who does a movie. They shoot all these scenes. If they don't wind up on the cutting room floor entirely,
right.
When you're on stage, you edit your own work.
That's
when
true.
you're in front of a camera, someone is editing it for you.
Icky.
It is icky, but we're used to it because actors are children and peons and all of that. So we're used to being manhandled, but not you. You're the best.
Thank you.
It's a privilege, and it's so much fun. I kind of count the days as the year goes by. That we know every 2 years is going to be. For a while there, they were going hot and heavy because I was going back in the catalog and picking up some of the other ones. But then I have to be patient.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Well, for a while I was writing a book a year.
That had to be incredibly hard.
Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. I got really cranky and unpleasant, and because what I would do, it would take me then 9 months to write a book. The early books were shorter. Now I'm getting old and long-winded. Now, can y'all hear me? I don't. Okay, because there's nothing worse than watching somebody's mouth move when you can't figure out what they're talking about. Early on, the manuscripts were about 300 pages, and it still took me 9 months to do it. Now the manuscripts are 600 pages, and since I am trying not to write the same book twice, I am competing with myself. Every book I begin, I'm having to go back and look at what I've done and make sure I'm not unconsciously repeating myself. So I keep elaborate charts. Wow. I keep a log. For instance, I know the gender of every killer, the gender of every victim, the motive for the crime, and the nature of the climax. If you don't keep track of the finale, you end up doing car chases or, kind of stuff.
You find different diabolical ways for Kinsey to get into the soup. It's really...
I also do a chart of log lines like you read in your television guide. In A is for Alibi, Kinsey is hired to prove the innocence of a woman who's just out of prison for murdering her husband. In B is for Burglar, Kinsey is hired to get a signature on a minor document. I can go through the alphabet doing that. It's really a party skill I'm not often asked to do.
I know that you started. Did you start your career in writing screenplays?
No, I started writing solo.
Solo.
Yeah, my first novel was never published. My second novel was never published. My third novel was never published. Fourth novel was published. It was called The Seventh Day of Keziah Dane, which got shortened to Keziah Dane. I was 25 years old, and I was writing about the Depression, and I didn't get that you were supposed to do research, you know. How arrogant was I? But somehow I think it came out okay. It is not writing I admire. I was still teaching myself to write. The fifth novel was published. That was called The Lolly Madonna War. And that sold to Hollywood and was done as a film with, catch this, Rod Steiger and Robert Ryan,
Wow.
Jeff Bridges, Season Hubley, Scott Wilson. It was a really terrible movie that you will sometimes see on your late night television. I would advise you to smoke a joint or something if you were going to watch this thing. It is just a dreadful movie. And it's been so chopped up now, they'll do cutaways, there's nothing there. You know, it's like, what's this about? However, I did learn to do screenplay for them, and I ended up in Hollywood for 15 years, which at first was glamorous and fun. I mean, it was just heady stuff. However, the work itself, they always wanted to take their fine gold pencils to my work. And as I proceeded through the years, I just got pissed off, you know, which is not a way to live. So my husband and I, where's Steve? Somewhere, I know he's here. Oh, there he is. He and I wrote together for 8 years, and because he's got a PhD in philosophy of physics. Qualified to write screenplays, yes. So, but we had a good time together. But toward the end, I got nastier and nastier. I'd go in these meetings, and everybody'd be 26 years old, which didn't suit me at all. And they'd be telling me how to do my job. I didn't like that. So I always say, in Hollywood, I learned 2 things about myself. 1, I am not a team player. 2, I am not a good sport. So at a certain point, when I just found myself so angry all the time. The anger is not good. I'm advising you right now. If you're pissed off, do something different. So I thought, nobody's got a gun to my head. If I don't like what I'm doing, I got to do something else. So I thought my only hope is to go back to solo writing. Oh, I must say, I wrote a 6th novel that was never published and a 7th novel that was never published. The 8th novel was A is for Alibi, which is an argument for persistence. Yes.
Well, you were working some stuff out, clearly.
Yeah.
But you also seem, I mean, I admit it, I haven't read any of the stuff from before you went to Hollywood. But it's, but the reason it's so much fun for me to do these books, aside from getting to know you and everything, and the yarns are so great, is that it's written for an actor to play. I mean, it really, it's a script.
Yes.
You know? Was that something you always did, or did that?
Well, Hollywood taught me many things, mostly that I didn't want to work for them. But I learned how to do action sequences. I learned how to do dialogue. I learned how to get into a scene and out of it. And that was valuable. I learned how to structure a story. And that was really important to me. And all of that served me when I got to A is for Alibi. I'm still learning, but I always thought I thought, I'm going to write about 4 or 5 of these books. I'm going to get the hang of it. I'm going to buzz right through. Not the case at all. It's getting harder and harder, and I'm so blessed that I only have 2 letters to go. My hair is gray. I don't know what's left. You know, I'm going to start.
I'm not excited that there are only 2 letters to go.
But see, I might do standalones after that if Miss Millhone is willing.
If she's willing, well,
Yeah.
we'll send her checks. No, and that's part of what really is fun, because for me, I read the book. Everything comes from that book. Everything comes from the script. It's like I don't need to go out and make up stuff. I don't need to come up with funny voices.
But
it's all there. The characters literally leap off the page and speak to me as an actor.
How do you do those Hungarian recipes? I always think about you when I put those in. They're so nasty,
Rosie,
you know.
Rosie has talked like this.
Yeah.
Yes. And we have pickled pig's feet with sauerkraut and I don't know if that's exactly Hungarian. I try to be Jaja a little bit with,
Oh, that's good.
mixed with, I don't know, some babushka I met. The yarns, yes. Do you find you're talking this latest book? Let me go.
Yeah.
There's a drought in California,
Yes.
and you're using a current problem. I mean, talk about ripped from the headlines. It's all around you when you're in California.
Well, one of the things I do, since I'm in the 80s, and the reason that's true is because I kind of painted myself into a corner. A is for Alibi was took place in May of 1982. It was published in May of 82. B is for Burglar took place in June of 82. C is for Corpse took place in August of 82. So by book 4, I was already way behind. I was getting in this time warp. And so one of the things when I go back, now I'm doing historical research trying to write these books. So when I know what season and what year I'm going to use, then I'll go back through newspapers and see what was actually going on then. And Steve and I were living in California with the drought of 86 to 91. I thought, well, that's a good place to start. At one point, the drought was so severe that there was a company that would come paint your lawn.
That's right.
And we had a house for sale, and so we had our lawn painted. It was so realistic. Our neighbors were really hostile because they thought we were watering our grass.
I remember that because I was I still in school? I was at UCLA. I know till like the early 80s, but yeah, I was still living there and plying what I like to call my career out there as an actor.
Let me just say, I started at UCLA too in night school.
Really?
That's how I started writing novels. $25 I paid for this night school course in creative writing with Robert Kirsch, who was the book editor of the New York, Los Angeles Times. We were
we might have
just
seen each
sisters.
other at
we
the
might. Well, I was there.
Coach,
I'm much older than you, sweetie. So that's good news for you.
I hope so. What can I ask you that everyone else wants to know? Are there questions out there or from people that they're longing to have answered?
Oh, goody.
I want to know, do you start your, like, this guy murdered this guy?
She's asking the origin. One of the questions I have to settle very early on, who hires Kinsey Millhone and what is she hired to do? Until I can answer that question, I'm not in business. Mystery fiction is very curious. It is the one form of literature in which the reader and the writer are pitted against each other. My job is to fool you. Your job is to see if you can catch me doing it. If you get to the end of the book and you figured it out on page 5, you're pissed off at me. If you get to the end of the book and you go, I still don't get it, you're also irritated with me. So I got one chance in 3 of pulling it off. Now, and bless Kinsey Millhone, because some people don't even care who done it. They just read to see what she's up to. So that saves me a lot of grief.
Speaking of that, we've opened a can of worms with Kinsey's background.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think you're going to be giving us some more of that?
The family.
Mm-hmm. It's a fascinating family.
I come up with these ideas. I must be nuts. When I was writing J is for Judgment, I thought, wouldn't it be fun if Kinsey ended up investigating herself? So she's in the middle of canvassing the neighborhood, and somebody says, you look just like the people in Lompoc. Anyway, half my readers really loved that. Half were bored to tears. And the truth about family dynamic is that it takes years to work out, and many people never work it out. So I let that float till I figured out what I wanted to do with it. And you see a little bit in books. I think it was U is for undertow, where she finally meets her grandmother. And
I cried through the whole end of reading that. They had to keep recording it over and over again.
thank you.
I guess I'm fully invested.
I hope so. I hope so. But the stories, I was going to say, a mystery novel takes place at 3 levels. 1 is what really happened. 2 is what appears to have happened. And 3 is how does the detective figure it out. So I have to work on all those levels. And it is like magic tricks. I really think mystery writers are the neurosurgeons of literature. Mystery fiction has a bad reputation. It's sort of lesser. You know, we're not literary fiction. Because when mystery fiction became popular, it was during the days of pulp paper. So it was second-rate stuff, and people were doing it for a penny a word. Now, some highfalutin people are in this business doing the damn fine John of it. So we're coming along. Now when I read literary fiction, it's like, where is the story, folks? You know, there's this sort of meandering quality, and sometimes the stylistics are so annoying, I just want to stab myself. So I'm very strict about the books I read. Every writer gets 10 pages. If they don't hook me in 10, that's not my fault. You know, that's their job. So a lot of literary fiction just bores me silly.
Yeah, you got to have a yarn to tell.
Yeah, exactly.
You
It's
do.
storytelling. And mystery fiction, you got a story. Page 1, page 2, you're off and running. And if a writer's doing his or her job right, you're hooked into it for the duration. Many times they don't do their job well, or you've seen it done too many times, so you have to be careful about that. Was that answer to a question?
Was that? Yeah. Well, yes. It was an answer to a whole bunch of questions. Did I just see a hand over here?
Oh, there's one over there.
Okay.
In Hollywood, I know you use storyboards. Do you use storyboards or a
Storyboard.
flowchart or whatever in order to kind of guide you?
I do use index cards. I don't outline per se, but many times I notice that if I know what a sequence is, I'm a lot more secure if I can look at the scenes. If I get stuck in a section of the book, I'll go back and break it down into index cards, which I've been known to color code, darling. You know, action is one color, description is another, and exposition, all of that, dialogue. And that way you can lay a story out, and you can see if there are big, boring gaps in it. My main object in life is not to bore myself silly. So one of the other things I do, I keep a journal for every novel that I write. I do this on computer. It's how I start my day. After I do emails and Facebook, come see me on Facebook. I'm there most days. My journals are like a long, whiny letter to myself. It is how I teach myself the story. My theory is that if I am afraid, which I am every day of my life, this business scares me silly. If I am sick, if my cat is sick, if I have house guests, all of that affects my work. And so I need to incorporate reality into the work I'm doing. My theory is that if I am afraid and I don't own it, it's going to sabotage the work. Now, writing is about facing your demons. And so that's what makes it so frightening. And when I look in my computer screen, I see all the doubts about myself, my insecurities. And that's what I struggle with. In a way, story and storyboards are the easy part. The hard part is working through my resistance, working through my hysteria. You know, it's like somebody said to me, "Do you have writer's block?" It's like, yeah, every single day. Are you crazy? So most of my work is trying to get out of my own way to let the story come through.
You do that very well. Actors kind of do that too, but it's to me it's never the blank page. You know, you're handed the script and you're going to interpret. You're going to get up and do something.
Yes,
it may
exactly.
be absolutely wrong, but
Right,
you will do
right.
something. But
But you're
inventing it.
You have to. That's a separate kind of courage. to perform.
People might throw things at me.
Exactly. And you're kind of on the line every time. You're auditioning or you're.
Well, that we do,
Which
yes.
is not fun.
Yeah, I do master classes sometimes,
Oh.
and I say, you know what I do really well? I take rejection.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's really going to be about that in the end.
Yeah.
If you do it really well and you don't try not to take it personally,
Right.
then you can get up and do it again.
My father wrote mystery fiction in the 40s. He was a municipal bond attorney in Louisville, Kentucky. Passionate about detective novels. So our family, we'd walk up to the corner drugstore where you could buy used paperbacks for 25 cents. And we'd come home, and my mother, we had one of those revolving drugstore racks. My mother would read these books and mark them dirty or dull or good. My sister and I, we were allowed to read anything we wanted, anything. So, of course, we went for the dirty ones. But my parents were so smart, they understood that if you read enough dirty books, they're so boring. So we kind of automatically drifted toward the better books. But one of the things my father did, at the end of a workday, he would work on his novels. So when I was 8 and 10 and 12, he was talking to me about writing, exactly how to take rejection. How to deal with an editor, which must be the same as a director
Not
in
dissimilar.
some ways. And so by the time I got to the job, at least I had some schooling. He taught me to work hard. See, I'm getting so old. These kids coming up, they don't know how to work hard, We got to teach them how to work hard. But it's the truth. We need to teach these kids work ethic, working hard, suffering for what you love. Nowadays, everything's too easy. So, the end of the lecture. Go ahead.
Unless they're young actors and they're putting themselves out there. I think this is a terrible thing to say, I suppose, right now, but I think actors are the best people on the planet because they just keep plugging and they help each other. And if you drop a line on stage, someone will pick it up and make you look good.
That's a good thing.
So we work in teams. I mean, that's
Yeah.
another thing. There you are by yourself,
Right.
inventing, and thank God you're doing it. But for a while you and Steve had written together, but now it's you and your.
Yeah. Well, he's good at story. He's the only person I share my work. When I am working, nobody, I do not share anything, except when I get stuck. Then I'll say to Steve, tell me if I'm on track or off track, because there are times I just get lost in the minutia. Usually he tells me I'm on track, whether it's true or not. And that's just like, I'm just like a little puppy dog. Okay, I go back to work. But you need somebody sometimes to give you that little boost of confidence.
The one time when I was trying to write, a friend of mine and we were both acting. No work was coming our way, so we sat down and wrote a 2-part, All in the Family script, which actually got read.
Oh.
We submitted. They actually read it because we didn't know. We were so stupid that you don't submit that stuff. They have people there writing that stuff, right? But we had each other to bounce it off.
Yeah. And I can see the joy of that, but I'm a solo writer. And that's what works for me is the pressure cooker, which is also what causes me to be so insecure and so hysterical when I'm working. Unless it's going right, then that's a joy beyond all measure. Most days it isn't going right, and I'm just having to be brave enough and courageous enough to stick with it. But the journal, see, as I work, I talk to myself in the journal. So if I think a section is boring, I talk about that on the computer. And I know I need to do something to spice it up. If I feel the story is confusing, one time, now I must say, I work with what I call shadow, which is Jungian. Ego, shadow. Shadow is where all the creative energy is. And shadow is what guides me. Shadow is that little voice that pipes up and tells you the truth. And I know all of you hear from your shadow. It's a very quiet voice, and often you don't pay attention to it. See, shadow, you'll meet somebody, and shadow says, bad. And you're thinking to yourself, now that's not nice. She's a lovely person. She will run away with your husband. And you know it the minute you meet her because shadow recognizes that. Ego is so trying to be such a good person, so you cut off those intuitions. Shadow is about wants, needs, and intuitions. And when you're working in the creative process, you have to rely on shadow. What's true of shadow, it's all the pieces of ourselves that we repudiate, all the things you're trying so hard not to be. Sweetie, we are so spiteful and jealous and petty. It's pathetic. You know, the little things you say to your husband about the dinner party you just went to, that's part of shadow. What I did at a certain point when I was writing J is for Judgment, I had cut myself off from shadow because I kept getting notes from people complaining about my salty language. What is
Do you listen to all those people coming to you and that write to you on Facebook?
Yeah.
And,
well,
or you just say, "Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, and I'm going to write whatever the hell I feel
I know,
like."
but I'm a good Southern girl. I was raised in Louisville, Kentucky, semi-South. I was taught two things. Never call attention to yourself and never make anybody else uncomfortable. So one of the things about murder is right away you are in so much trouble. You have violated both those principles. But I had been getting notes from people with gray hair complaining about my language, and unconsciously or even consciously I began to censor myself. So I wrote 8 chapters of J is for Judgment. It was flat, dead stuff. And my phone rang one day, and a Hollywood producer I had worked with said to me, "Do you remember when you said to me, if I ever found a therapist who's good with creative people, I should let you know?" I went, "Yeah." I swear I never said that to her, but I went along with the gag. She said, "I have a fellow right now, he is magic." She gave me this therapist's phone number. I called him. We were living in Santa Barbara. I called him in Los Angeles. Steve and I drove down, I think on Friday or Saturday. After that, I never saw him again. We did 3 months of phone therapy. And it was so weird. It's Jungian. You know, I was used to boohoo therapy. You know, where you're so mad and you're blaming people and it's all somebody else's fault and your little childhood traumas are so precious. Jungian therapy is very abstract and intellectual. So you're dealing with the stuff you think, this can't possibly help me. But what he taught me was the difference between ego and shadow. And what I realized I had done by the time I got to J is for Judgment, I had cut myself off from shadow. I was so busy trying to please people and be perfect. So this guy says to me on the phone one day, suppose you turn this novel in late. Like, late? I'm a good Girl Scout. I don't do anything late, you know? And then he said to me, what if, aside from the fact you turn it in late, it's not very good? Well, I was starting to black out. I was hyperventilating. And then he said to me, God will still let you breathe. And that just set me free. It's like, well, shit, if God will still let me breathe, what am I worried about? But what I understood, you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to take those risks. And where I am in my career, I could sail by. You know, I could fool you for a while. After a while, you'd figure out I was cheating. But if you're good-natured and you love me, and it would take you a while. But my job is not to cheat, not to take shortcuts, not to fake. So that's the kind of pressure I put on myself. Just delivering the truth as nearly as I can.
That's another place where these two abilities or arts allied, because it's my job to try to find the truth in the material and deliver it. So that's what an actor is always looking for, is the truth. And when you deliver it like that, it's so playable. It's so funny. When something is well written, it is easy to learn, easy to memorize, easy to perform. If it's not, boy, is it hard to learn.
Yeah, flat or clumsy.
Especially clumsy. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It's really, really tough. But that the whole thing about finding the truth and then trusting it, trusting your own instincts.
Absolutely, it is a matter of trust. Totally.
It's That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
wonderful.
so now we'll take another. Okay. You call on somebody. It's
Okay.
like being a teacher. It's really fun.
Yeah. Oh, we got more. This lady in the green on the aisle here.
We met you in Frankfurt when you were there, appearing there once, and I want to tell you that you are the most gracious author that we have ever had sign books, because some people act like they're doing you a big favor by signing books. But we had a whole bunch of them, and we apologized for having, and you said, honey, just haul them up here and I'll sign them. You kept them up there and you signed them, and we still to this day tell people how wonderful you were about that. But what I wanted to say was we have cousins in Louisville, and they talk constantly about your beautiful home.
Oh,
And I think it was on
that's
tour or
true.
something. So what does your home in Louisville mean to you, and does it impact your writing at all?
When I left Louisville, the first time, I was maybe 19, and truly it was like, thank you, Lord Jesus, I'm over the state line. I headed for California and mental health, which is really a contradiction in itself. But Steve went to graduate school at Ohio State, so we would come down to Louisville for weekends. He always loved it. I was looking at him like, are you nuts? It's just dreadful. I used to, unconsciously, I'd be spelling Louisville, it'd be Louisville, because anyway. But we came back in 93 and started looking at houses, I realized it was such a beautiful place. And the thing about people in Louisville, and probably here in Nashville as well, at a dinner party, nobody talks about their psychic nutritionist or their high colonics, which is really refreshing,
I'm disgusted.
I know, especially when you're trying to eat. I'm like, are you kidding? So we bought a house in 93, and in 2000, we thought to ourselves, wouldn't it be fun to build a house? So we were looking for property. We went to see this little piece of estate that somebody was trying to sell off, and Steve, being a guy, climbed this hill and looked over the top and said, what the heck is that? It's this amazing house that we ended up buying, the whole estate. The old lady who owned it was just about to break it down into little subdivision, so we saved it. But that's his passion, that house. It's just a great house.
Do you have animals there at all?
Well, we have deer, and we have wild
the wild
turkeys and
stuff,
raccoons,
yes.
and we have chickens. Are you any of y'all backyard chicken? See?
I think that'd be really, really neat.
Can I tell you my chicken story? Oh, I gave a blurb. There's a book coming out called Locally Laid about, which is written by a woman whose husband thought it would be really jolly to do organic, free-range eggs. And so I gave her a blurb. It's a lovely book, and it's funny, and it's drive you crazy. But we have these backyard chickens, and we name them, of course, and we cook for them every day. They get ground turkey. They're carnivores or cannibals, so they'll eat chicken or turkey. They'll go after it. They'll eat each other if you don't watch them. So we cook ground turkey, and they get slaw mix, and they get either rice or macaroni, and then they get a bowl of either cottage cheese or yogurt and fruit. And, so we had this chicken whose name was Pecky Sue. And I was looking at her one day and going, Pecky Sue does not look good to me. So I said to Steve, is something wrong with this chicken? He's going, I don't think so. So 2 days later, I thought, I got to take this chicken to a vet. Finding a veterinarian for a chicken is no easy thing. But I will tell you this, if you put a chicken in a cat carrier, they behave much better than your dog and your cat. They don't sit there whining and shaking because they think you're going to kill them. Chickens are stupid, see. So I take Pecky Sue to the veterinarian, and so they let her loose, and she's pooping all over the floor and pecking away at things. And so the vet comes in and starts looking at her. And veterinarians, I swear, go to a special class where they learn to look really solemn and sorrowful. So she's giving me this look, and she said, this chicken is really ill. And they did an ultrasound.
Wow.
And so she's showing me all this fluid, and she said the chicken's in pain. I was like, I'm feeling worse and worse. I wasn't even going to take her to the vet. So she says, I could do a hysterectomy. And I'm thinking, It's a chicken.
No more eggs.
I paid $10 for this chicken to lay eggs for me. So she said, well, some people like them for pets. I said, I like them for pets, but I don't want my chicken to have a hysterectomy. So she's talking to me more about the chicken's pain and all this stuff. And I said to her, we learned to do this in therapy. What I hear you saying, what I believe you're telling me is this chicken should be euthanized. She said, with the real sad eyes, she's going, yes, that's true. She said to me, do you want to be with her? I don't want to be with my chicken when she's being euthanized. So she explained to me, they put this little, and then they, and then she said to me,
I'm so sad.
what do you want to do with the remains? Well, I thought to myself, I'm going to take
Coco
this dead
Van.
chicken home in a cat carrier and throw it in my garbage. And I didn't want to tell my vet that. I was in ego. I was trying to pretend like I was a nice person. So she said, do you want her cremated? I went, sure. So this $10 chicken cost me $188 to put down. So that's the story of backyard chickens. You be real careful with them.
But to go out and get those eggs every morning.
Oh, they're great.
Oh, my gosh.
Right now, our chickens are molting. There's nothing uglier than a molting chicken. It's not that like they lose all their feathers, they lose in patches, and the feathers come in looking like quills. It's just...
And they know they don't look good.
They're disgusting.
They're very
yeah.
embarrassed.
Yeah, and we're not going to do a whole veterinarian thing here, but anyway, skipping right along.
Kinsey will have chickens in the next book. How about over here?
You envisioned there being a television series or a movie that showcases Kinsey and...
What's she asking?
Will Kinsey have a series? Will she have her own series?
No.
Or a
Remember the
movie?
story about Hollywood and how much I hated it? Remember the part of the story where I said I got back to solo writing and invented Kinsey Millhone? I couldn't sell her back to, they would ruin it. And here's how I know. You know Lawrence Block's work, Bernie Rodenbar. Bernie Rodenbar is a white male Jewish burglar. He sold the rights to Hollywood. They cast Whoopi Goldberg. Now, the Jewish part they got right. So I figure if I sold the rights to Kinsey Millhone, they'd cast Eddie Murphy. And they'd think it was a keen idea. And they'd want me to agree with them, which I would not.
For years, I thought it should be... go ahead. I'll
No,
remember.
no,
I kept having Jamie
Sigourney-
Lee Curtis in my mind.
Nice, yeah. Yeah. But, the truth is, if that part is ever cast, you're all going to be pissed off at me. I don't want to deal with the letters, Half of you you'll know it's wrong casting. You'll know it's wrong. And I'll know it's wrong, and it is wrong. So I think of books as movies in the mind. You get to be totally in charge. You cast it. You see the sets, the action you follow in your imagination. I love movies, but a good book does not necessarily make a good movie, especially when you run it through the Hollywood ringer. And a series would be worse. Oh, that would be just dreadful. So, no, ma'am. Thank you for
Short
asking,
answer, though.
Here's what I say. I get a letter sometime. Now they don't ask me anymore. They know I'm so nasty to them. I say, if I get a letter asking about the television or film rights, I say, I would rather roll naked in broken glass than sell you this character. Or I say, I'd rather have a root canal than sell you this character.
That's pretty
so
clear.
then they don't ask me so often.
That's pretty clear. I think they should... how about way back there?
Do you have a favorite book of yours from A to X?
A favorite book?
Oh,
Of
I like
yours.
J is for Judgment because it changed the way I work. I like A is for Alibi for its sass. When I wrote A, I had nothing at stake. I was free as a bird, and so it's got some piss and vinegar in it that I kind of like. I like G is for Gumshoe, because Robert Dietz, everybody loves Robert Dietz. And a little sex in there, which I don't often do. I like Ellis for Lawless, because it's just a
That
cross-country romp, And it was fun to just watch her go through that whole procedure. When I got to S is for Silence, that, again, it's not my favorite book, although I read it recently. I thought, dang, that's good. S is for Silence is the first book where I did multiple points of view and time switches. Some people like it, some don't. For me, it was very liberating. By then, it was like 26 books is like a marathon. It's 26 miles. And when I got to S&T, that was really the wall for me. So figuring out S was the battle of battles with all my demons flying around my head. T is for trespass was hard. Then they got a little easier. Then I should never listen to people. Some reader said to me casually, why don't you go back and do a novel strictly from Kinsey's point of view? I thought, good idea. I did 18 of those without batting an eye. X, which is strictly from Kinsey's point of view except for the opening section, was murder. It was torment. How I ever did it, now I go back and read the early ones. How did I do that? Because it's so much more freeing to be able to move around the story. It makes a story three-dimensional. And it also gives the reader information that Kinsey doesn't have, which is kind of fun.
That is fun. But it's also really fun when I'm reading it and I go back to just not a paragraph, but an entire chunk of the book that's just hers.
Yeah.
It's like such a relief to me.
Yeah, because you know what you're doing. When you get there.
But we get to visit all this other stuff, and then I'm waiting. Well, how's she going to deal with it?
Yeah. Well, I try to make sure she dominates. It's her book. It's her narrative. But it's nice once in a while to cut away. So,
and such grand other characters. I mean, they're all so well drawn.
Thank you.
Well, I mean it. I do. Especially the Mexican bandito with Tourette's.
Oh,
that was one of my favorite to ever.
That was H is for homicide. Oh man, that was a really scary book. I hope people here are not too PC because there are three kinds of people who do auto insurance fluoride in California. Estonians, I don't know any Estonians. African Americans, sorry, but they do, and Hispanics. So it's like, pick one, somebody's going to be mad at you. So I decided it should be Hispanics doing this. And then somehow it came to me this, what was his name? Raymond.
I think it was Raymond.
Maldonado, that he should have Tourette's. Well,
did you just dream that up one night?
Yeah, it just seemed interesting to me. So I did a lot of research, but I realized in addition to all the Hispanics in the country are going to be mad at people with Tourette's are going to be mad at me. And so I contacted the national director of the Tourette's syndrome of the universe. And I said to her, name was Nadine or Natalie, Natalie, what am I supposed to do? I said, I've got a villain who has Tourette's. And she said, well, why shouldn't somebody with Tourette's get the good part? So it's like, okay. And so that was a fun book for me. It scared me silly because I'm just not going down to the barrio to do research, trust me. And if that sounds incorrect, I'm so sorry, but I would be a dead person now. So I had to do a lot of research, but from afar.
It was a great character.
That was a scary one.
And to suddenly find myself in the studio being asked to embody that was like, see, that's what's so great about doing this is that I get to play characters no one would ever hire me to do. I would never get near any of them.
Exactly.
It's wonderful.
The best character in that book was that dog, that nasty dog that'd been chained up and going, rah, rah. So Kinsey's lying on this lumpy couch. She's down in this terrible part of town hanging out with these auto insurance fraud people. And she's lying on this lumpy couch. She hears the chain. She realizes the dog has gotten loose, and he's coming in the room. And he puts this little snout up. He ends up crawling in bed with her. And that's just fun. He was just a sweet dog, as it turned out.
Right here.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say I really enjoy when a book makes me emotional, and the gamut, I mean, you're just up and down and all over. And actually hearing you and seeing your persona in person, I can see how it is that you so easily make me laugh out loud when I'm reading one of your books, and I just really appreciate it.
What I do when I'm reading, I look for three. If a writer can make me laugh or cry or scare the wee-wee out of me, I'll read those sections, then I go back and break them down. I analyze. How does this writer do it? How can you take language and make it so compelling that the person reading has emotions of that sort. That is really a very strange thing. One thing I do with books, and I advise you, so we're talking about writers that you meet, always look at the author photo. Because think about it, you're going to spend hours with this person. If they're too photoshopped, or if they look tense, or if they look psycho, don't read the book. You're not going to be happy. You know, you can tell people, see its shadows going, I don't like that guy. The other thing, if you're going to meet a writer in person, do a little research up front, because some of them are really not nice. And once you meet a writer whose work you admire and they turn out to be cold, I quit reading their books, you know? So it's always well to be advised about whether a writer, and the gossip is out there everywhere. Get on the internet and ask about people. They'll tell you anything.
Wow, a snitch. Okay.
Well, we just called on her.
Okay, this lady right here.
Are you Kinsey and is Kinsey?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I always say, do you like her? If you like her, I'll confess that it is me. Yes. Yeah. She's younger, thinner, and braver.
Except for those hours when I'm in the studio with her. And then I believe I am her. One more over here. Okay, we haven't gone to this side of the room.
I know.
Oh.
Henry, I wanted to ask about Henry. We love Henry. Is he based on someone you knew, or did you just create Henry?
Yeah, Henry is invented, but I'm so in love with him. Try not to tell my husband that, you know. And as Kinsey says, there's only a 50-year age difference. What's the big whoopee-doo? Henry is so perfect that often I make him cranky. I try to put him in jeopardy, because otherwise he's just too adorable for words. So Rosie, I'll tell you who Rosie is. She's one of the sole characters I pulled from real life. Remember the mamas and the papas? Michelle Phillips. Michelle Phillips has a daughter named China Phillips, Wilson Phillips. China Phillips' godmother lived in the apartment building where I met my husband, and she is the prototype for Rosie. And I only tell that story because I know she's dead by now. She's got to be. But that character I lifted from life. I will tell you, regardless of what happens to Z is for Zero and beyond, Kinsey Millhone will go on forever. I'm not going to kill her. I can't say she's going to get married and have 6 kids, or work in Sears,
You better get going.
But Henry's going to survive. All the sibs are going to survive. I keep saying, Nella's about to turn 100. She's not even sick. Why would she die? So anyway, just trust me. Those people are going to go on forever.
Thank you for that. It makes me feel a whole lot better. Well, are we being told that we need to move on now?
I know, really. There's another act following us. We don't know who it is. Okay, so here's the deal. I'll sign anything. I'll sign your underwear. I'm not proud. And you can get your picture taken, and we'll actually pose, And I always check to see if the pictures are good, because if they're bad of me, I'll pay you $1 million to delete them. So, but it takes a while, because I like to chat with people. So make friends in line, be patient, and just try to behave yourselves, please.
Thank you.